evening, my friends. It is October 29th, 2018, 9:39 p.m. We are starting with the continental U.S. current temperatures, and as you can see, it is getting colder and colder and colder. All these blues, get used to it because this is what we're going to be seeing for the next 5 or 6 months, unfortunately. Now, there is actually another reason I'm showing this chart to you. I want you guys to start focusing on the jet stream because as hurricane season is approaching the end, I'm not going to say there's no more hurricanes coming. We currently do have Hurricane Oscar in the Atlantic. We have two invests in the Pacific right now. We'll talk about those real quick. But what we need to really start focusing on is what's going on with the U.S. jet stream and what it's going to do, especially to the Northeast. We are looking at the possibility of three, maybe four more nor'easters in the beginning of November itself. We're talking November 2nd, November 6th to the 7th, and then November 11th to the 12th. Those are three possible viewable nor'easters that are currently on charts right now, back to back to back. Very early in the season for this. If you guys remember last year in March, we had four in 1 month. So let's get into that as well. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about Hurricane Oscar. We're going to get through the Pacific Invests. We're going to talk about Yutu, the typhoon that has completely destroyed parts of the Mariana Islands. They are still evacuating people from this storm because it is still very strong and it's heading towards another area. So with that said, let's move on and see what we have here. All right, as you can see here, we have Hurricane Oscar in the middle of the Atlantic. Most articles, if not all, are saying this is no threat to land. I also agree with this because we have a high pressure. Again, the jet stream wall is coming right across the U.S. just as Oscar is approaching this direction. Oscar is actually heading currently towards the U.S., but this front that's coming from west to east is going to push this thing up. This will be an issue for the UK and Ireland. It just depends on how big and how strong this thing's going to be by the time it gets up there. So as of right now, no threat to the U.S. It will get kind of close to the Nova Scotia area, which actually puts Maine and the other areas in this spot on watch as of now. Nothing really serious. I do not believe this storm will have any sort of U.S. impact. If anything, it will affect the U.K. and Ireland. We could see here in this visual, let's click this. We could see Oscar is moving in a northern direction. That's how you can tell. You watch that eye wall, you could see it moving north. It was moving west, and now that front is beginning to affect it, and that is why as of 6 hours ago, the storm was down in this area moving this way, and now it's tracking upwards. So that is the beginning of that front that is going to keep it away from the U.S., but we could still see a pretty defined eye wall there. It is a Category 1 storm. This chart here said 90 mile per hour winds, I believe. I think the new updated one are like about 110 to 115, and then there was 130 mile an hour gust registered with this. So it's packing a punch. There's no doubt about it, but it's a good thing that it's not heading towards the U.S., even though the spaghetti plot, this black triangle here, this is the current direction of the storm. Even though we're looking at that chart that shows it moving north, this is their updated current version, and it's pointing in this direction, but this is not a spaghetti plot. This is just the current direction. These are the plots you want to watch, and these are more than likely what's going to happen. By the time the storm gets to about this area, that front coming off the U.S. is going to push it over, and we'll see if it gets close enough to Nova Scotia to cause an impact, but more than likely not. It will be a UK/Ireland situation. It looks like it might go right over them. Let's hope that happens. But when these storms get up to this area, they expand very quickly because of the cooler air, and they cover a wider area of the ocean and any land that's in that area. So we will keep an eye on Oscar. Absolutely, it's an Atlantic storm, it's a hurricane, and as of right now, it's pointing at the U.S., so there's no taking our eyes off this thing. Okay, with that said, we already looked at this chart. This is Oscar satellite view and the GFS model. Let's see what this shows because this is going to tie into what I want to talk about as far as these nor'easters that we are going to be dealing with. Now you can see Oscar right here, 991 pressure. We have this is the system right here that is currently pushing Oscar away from the U.S., and then a high pressure bubble in the Atlantic Ocean is what's pushing Oscar up and then over top of it, which is also why the UK and Ireland are going to be at threat for this storm, and we're going to see that right here as I move forward. So you can see Oscar strengthens a little bit, but that high pressure right here catches it. You can see that line goes right underneath there, and then it picks it up and swoosh, boom, and you can see how it expands once it passes that threshold of Nova Scotia. This water here is very cold. These storms expand, but that doesn't weaken them. They can actually get stronger, and you can see that how big that gets, those purples. Very dangerous territory when you see those purple colors. And as of right now, it's going right over Northern Ireland and the UK. So if it stays that way, we're good to go as far as our friends over there. But it comes with some other stuff we just don't want, and those are nor'easters. So here we go. You can see right here, November 2nd. I'm going to show you this on Tropical Tidbits too, because we could see our clear 9 symbol, which represents the nor'easters, how we could tell they're nor'easters. They usually affect the coast more than anything, and the areas to the east of the Great Lakes with lake effect snow, depending on if the nor'easter is coming over the Great Lakes or if it's coming down from underneath. Those are all factors that come into play that determines where the snow or the heavy rain is going to be. Now, from what I can tell, these next couple nor'easters are going to be more rainmakers, except for the most northern areas of New York and New Hampshire and Vermont, and those areas in Maine, of course. So there is one right there. As we move forward, we see a second one develop right there. That's November 7th. So that could be between the 6th and 7th right there. And then as we move forward, we have yet one more that pops up as far as the data available, and that is 11th through the 12th, which seems to be the strongest and the one that shows the most possibility for snow in some of the northeast areas. So that's 3, guys. That's 3 nor'easters within a what? The November 2nd through the 12th, that's about a 10-day period. If this is something that begins to be a regular thing, is there going to be a nor'easter season? Could we have something new in the weather world called a nor'easter season? I know last year March was the big month for nor'easters, but to see these happening this soon while we're still in hurricane season, it's just there's so much going on in the U.S. right now. It's insane. And then we have our typhoons, U2 we still have to talk about. But with that said, let's move on. Now, as of right now, this first set of moisture that we're going to be dealing with as far as a nor'easter, this is our rain rate chart over from the 30th to the 4th. So about a 5-day period of rain. We could see the heaviest of the rain in the Tennessee, Kentucky area, and that's going to move up to the northeast, and then it's going to swirl. And that's when we need to watch out for the coastal areas, just like we did the past couple days. A lot of rainfall on the coasts. They usually get hit the worst because of the wind coming off the ocean. It's a counterclockwise spin, so that wind is coming into the coast and then being pulled out the other side. So the coastal areas get hit hard with the rain and the wind, and then the inland areas that are to the east of the lakes usually get that lake effect snow when it's cold enough, like Buffalo and Watertown. A lot of those areas we talk about over here. So as of right now, this is our rain chart. We could be dealing with up to 4 to 5 inches of rain over the next 5 days in this area. So that's pretty significant. It is getting cooler. Again, I do not believe this will be a snowmaker. We will see that probably later on in November, mid-November. But who knows? One little dip in the jet stream can change everything, and we could be dealing with a blizzard. So, all right, on we go. And really quick, as far as current storms go, obviously we just talked about Hurricane Oscar, 100 knot gusts right now. We already looked at that satellite imagery. We looked at the path it is expected to take. But we also have, obviously, U2, which is a Pacific typhoon. We're going to talk about that in a minute and the damage it has caused. And then we have 2 new invests in the Pacific Ocean, both of which don't look to be too big of a threat as far as either coming up to the Baja region or anywhere near California, or really affecting areas of Hawaii. We're late in the season for the Pacific side of things. Of course, anything is possible, but they are worth noting. So we have Invest 92E, and then we have Invest 93E, and those are both visible on this chart here. As we look at the Pacific Ocean, we have a 30% chance of cyclone formation over the next 48 hours. Both of these are 48-hour estimates, 10% for this one. The other charts that we bring up are 5-day charts, so the percentages are more than likely higher. I like using these charts a little better because it gives you an idea of what's going on right now and in the next 48 hours. So we don't need to look 5 days away as of right now, especially in the Pacific Ocean, when it'll take 5 days anyway for this storm to get to Hawaii, or 3 to 4 days for this thing to come up near Mexico or anywhere near the States. So as of right now, this is our situation with those two Invest 93, what was it? Invest 92E and 93E. So this is both of those right here. And we're just going to have to keep an eye on them, watch them, see what they do. Again, I want to focus on these nor'easters once again. Now, I have you on a different chart here. This is more of a moisture chart. It'll give you more detail on what we can expect. So this is the first that we talked about, the one that's bringing all the rain in the next coming days, basically through the Ohio River Valley. That's extending up through New York and the upper east states, and we can see snow up here, guys. So if you're in Maine, the northern parts of New Hampshire, Vermont, northern New York, even west north New York, you could possibly expect snow, especially in the higher elevations. So here we go again, November 2nd. This would be the first of the next three coming. This would be peak day. This is when the highest winds, the most amount of rain will happen. And then you could see as we move into the third, it's basically cleared out. It'll be clear, it'll be crisp out, pretty cool temperatures as we are entering November. That's going to be the deal now, guys, for the next 5-6 months, cold weather. And then we see as we move into the 7th, and then the 8th, or no, the 7th there's the second nor'easter. Now, this brings some pretty severe weather to areas of Pennsylvania and New York. Again, more than likely rain, but it's going to be cold. So it's going to be cold and windy. And then as we move into the 8th, that is when the coastal areas like Massachusetts, New Jersey, Long Island, all those states that stick out into the ocean, that's going to be the worst part of this for them, November 7th. So that is another heads up warning for you. And then as we move more into the future, which obviously could change, you know, after 5 days, anything is possible. This is the one that's starting to show me that as these continue to roll in, we're going to start seeing more and more snow, because you see that blue color there, that is snow. And this is the third of the nor'easters that I was talking about, November 2nd. Then we have November 6th through the 7th, and now November 11th through the 12th. And you can see here, this one is covering a lot of the southern states, as far as and as well as the northeast. The low pressure being up in Canada, still that is whipping down cold air and snow to western parts of New York. Again, anything to the east of the Great Lakes usually gets hit harder than the west because of that lake effect snow. And again, it depends on where the nor'easter comes from. If they're coming from down here, chances are the lake effect deal won't be as much. But when you see these things drop down from Canada over the center of the U.S., and then kind of either over the Great Lakes or even underneath them, you can more than likely expect the Great Lakes to have an effect on those areas to the east side of them, if that makes sense. So we talked about this a lot in March because of those nor'easters we had, but to see this back to back to back, it's just showing me what we're going to be expecting this winter, unfortunately. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is just one of those situations where we're going to get these couple and then hopefully a break. We'll just deal with the cold weather and some snow. Maybe have a normal winter for once if there's such a thing. But nonetheless, we have 3 of these coming, guys, so we got to be aware of that. And finally, this is via the Washington Post. This is semi-new information. Basically, it's like the latest information on Typhoon Yutu. It ravaged a U.S. territory, believe it or not. Some of the areas hit were U.S. territories. That's why they made such a big deal of this in the media. You know, it's like out of sight, out of mind with some of these storms. Some of the biggest storms in the world you never hear about because they don't affect the U.S., but there's other human beings in the world, and we need to keep them in our minds too. It's a big world out there. There's a lot of weather and a lot of people at risk. So I do tend to focus on the U.S., but when storms like this happen, you have to report on them. It's very important for those of you that follow weather. You understand that this was one of the bigger storms we've seen in a long time. So the Northern Mariana Islands, they got slammed bad. They have a lot of cleaning up to do. They have a lot of damage, a lot of flooding, a lot of displaced people, a lot of power outages. You could see in this one picture here. Hopefully this picture's not copyrighted, but I guess we'll find out. You can still see there is significant wind going on right now. These trees are still being blown. Even though you see blue skies, the wind rates are still up. These things were torn out of the ground, either that or the car hit it when it flipped over. But when you have winds this strong that are flipping over cars, that is no joke. You can see the damage back here to some of these buildings, and this is one small area. This storm itself was like many times bigger than the islands that it hit. So that's why this thing will probably be retired as a typhoon. Anyone that wants to check this website out, it's thewashingtonpost.com, and then you could just type in the search menu YUTU, that is the name of the storm, and it gives you basically like a play-by-play over the last few days of what happened and how much damage it did, the people missing, all that bad news that we just don't like to talk about. So it's been a very busy season all over the world, Pacific and Atlantic together. But that's sometimes the way it goes, guys, and it's beginning to be a trend. The weather is changing. We are getting stronger storms. They're happening more often. They're staying strong longer after hitting land. These nor'easter situations, it's very weird. And you could tell that even the meteorologists on TV are not at a loss of words, but they are, they're learning as they go too, because this is something that our world just has not seen, at least in modern times. We started recording weather basically in the 1800s, around that time. Maybe this is a cycle that we're going to be dealing with every couple hundred years, but you go back 10 years ago, besides obviously 2005 with that big hurricane season we had, weather's been fairly common and normal and routine each year. Besides that random hurricane season that's stronger than the other one, but these nor'easters, it's a little bit rare. So we got to keep an eye on it. I'll be here to report on it nonstop, and I'm glad you guys are still here. So as of right now, we're looking at Oscar. We're still looking at the effects of Typhoon Yutu, and now we need to watch out for the Northeast and the nor'easters, guys. So that is the update for now. Over the next 2 days, there will be a lot of videos out. We got a surprise for you guys coming up in about 2 days, which will be pretty cool. I'm sure a lot of you, especially the constant followers, will enjoy very much. So we appreciate the patience, guys. Like I said, our work schedule keeps us from making videos for a few days during the week, but then once we're off, we have consecutive days off. That's when we try to catch up. But don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We're always here to answer questions. Don't ever worry about us. If anything ever happens to where we can't post, you guys will be the first to know. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate all the support. And with that said, guys, I hope everyone has a great night. Stay warm if you're in the Northeast, and stay dry if you're in any of those areas with those nor'easters coming. We will talk soon, more than likely tomorrow afternoon. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.